Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Cambodia Global Dialogue of Southeast Asia TV. For those who are not familiar with the program or your first time watching the program, this initiative is something quite simple. The world is full of knowledgeable people with great experience in their own right, whether they're national, they're international, they're local, they all have earned their right to be expert in their own field. And we felt that, through this program, we hope to be able to have a frank dialogue with such a personality, and hopefully, through the exchange of this frank discussion, of this good practice, this best practice, the Cambodian will be able to learn from the experience of others and hopefully translate this knowledge into opportunity to help rebuild the economy of the country, or to further expand their knowledge base, again, for the development of Cambodia. Today's session is about trade, about the importance of trade, not just national trade but international trade. And we have the pleasure to have with us today a very distinguished personality and an expert in his own right in the area of trade. And he happened to be a very good friend of mine and a colleague for almost 4 years when I was posted in Geneva with the International Trade Center in Geneva. We have the pleasure to welcome Dr. Friedrich von Kirchbach. Friedrich, welcome.
Thank you very much, Siphana.
Perhaps, Friedrich, before we go to the substance of our dialogue, I just want to say that you have a wealth of experience. I mean, in this area, your last 2 decades is in the heart of international trade, but from very different angle, from analysis, from market analysis, from development, from programming. Maybe I should let you talk a bit about your career shortly, so that this way our audience will appreciate where you're coming from.
Thank you very much, Siphana. A real pleasure to be here today. And I must say, I had the great privilege to start my career in this part of the world. As a young man, I wrote my dissertation about European investment in Malaysia, and then I spent quite a bit of time in the ASEAN countries to do my PhD on foreign investment promotion in the ASEAN countries, and continued my work then to work with the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific in Bangkok, and to continue to work on trade. And later on I moved more into the trade promotion area. I joined the International Trade Center in Geneva, where we met, which is actually a joint venture between the World Trade Organization and the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, all the three being based in Geneva, and making Geneva a little bit the unofficial capital of the world of trade. So that's really my relation to trade, in addition to many other things I have done on the business side also and on the academic side.
On the trade, the international trade aspect, Cambodia have worked very hard to join the WTO, and we see the benefit 5-6 years later that Cambodia economy is prospering as a result of our entering the WTO. But in the global context, perhaps, Friedrich, you can share a bit your view, from a Geneva perspective on one side, but also from your world experience of covering the world, in so many different angles. Tell me more how you see the benefit of international trade, particularly for small country, and not as developed country. Because it's easy for the big country to say that trade matter, but for smaller country, trade does matter. But please.
Well, let me begin by saying that we cannot overestimate the importance of international trade. Let me start with a few numbers. Annual trade these days for the entire world is around $16 trillion. Now that's very difficult to imagine. How much is 16 trillion? Actually, it's a 16 plus 12 zeros. Or if you convert that, it means, Siphana, that you have a $500,000 deal every second. So the overall trade is very important, and it has been growing, decade by decade. The share of world trade, of world output that's being traded, has just moved up every year, with very few exceptions. And so that means that companies, that cities, countries, regions, unless they participate in becoming trade-oriented, by participating in international trade, they have lots of difficulties to compete. Now, the second point, which I think is so interesting, is that actually in the structural change of international trade, Cambodia is in the center of an extremely trade-oriented region. Nowadays, around 40% of world trade is done by developing countries. It's by no means only the big countries. And a third of this 40% is actually Asian trade. So this means that basically, to come back to our trade per second, we are at something like $100,000 of Asian trade every second, right? And until recently, Germany was, my own country, was the largest exporter in the world. It no longer is. It's now China.
Yes.
And you have, of course, then the highly integrated ASEAN economies with a very strong interregional trade, where Asian clients are the most important for Asian exporters, and the other way around. So Cambodia, in a way, is situated in this heart of trade, and therefore I think is particularly well positioned to participate in international trade. Now, one may argue and say that the least developed countries overall have not been so successful in international trade, and that is true. Their overall share in world trade may be around 1%, and if you exclude oil, it would be only 0.5%. But on the other hand, if I see how Cambodia, within a fairly short period of time, maybe a bit more over a decade, has been able to grow its trade by double-digit figures, to reach after all a quite significant overall amount of over $4 billion a year. I think that we have again something of an Asian success story for an LDC, where in spite of the difficulties and notwithstanding that there are many challenges to face, trade has allowed Cambodia to move forward. And I found it interesting that in today's newspaper there is a positive mention of Cambodia being among those countries that have advanced quite successfully against the targets, the Millennium Development Goals, that overall Cambodia has been able to benefit from these opportunities. And I think that's so important because, some people say that the crisis of 2008, 2009 really should make countries more prudent to engage in international trade. From my perspective, the point is more that the crisis shows that we are all so much interconnected that it's really absolutely essential to work on one's country's competitiveness in order to deal with this interlinkages, interdependencies successfully.
Yeah. Friedrich, I mean, you mentioned a few times the regional dimension.
Yes.
And Cambodia is in ASEAN. And ASEAN now, we talk a lot about ASEAN centrality because you have development partner, early this year, the ASEAN-China free trade agreement went into force. ASEAN, New Zealand, Australia free trade is entering into force. Cambodia still have to ratify, but it's a matter of months. I see through this regional free trade agreement, tremendous potential for Cambodia in terms of market access and everything. What do you take on that?
I can't agree more. You know, from a European perspective, we have learned that regional integration can really be one of the major drivers of increasing competitiveness, of finding synergies, of specialization, of learning within a regional market how to compete worldwide. And I think there are very few other regions in the world where you have such a successful growth of intra-regional trade. And I think that in Southeast Asia and more generally in Asia, you have the tremendous advantage of having a high complementarity, good differences which can be exploited between the different countries.
Yes.
Firstly, and secondly, there is a historic track record of moving up jointly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think some people have given this the poetic name of the wild geese pattern,
Yes.
where you have different countries and all of you advance together.
Yeah.
And of course, there's also a significant amount of competition, and that's
Yeah.
important. It helps countries to stay on their toes
Yes.
and to ensure that industries remain competitive. But I think overall, a situation where in Cambodia you have, for instance, very fertile land, you have very favorable market access with your status as a
Yes.
LDC.
Yeah.
You are very close to the major other centers. And I think in international trade and investment, it's like buying a house where the three major criteria are location, location,
and
location. And I think, you know,
Yeah.
it's this point of departure which I think offers a tremendous potential for Cambodia within the regional context and the wider context.
Yes.
Is it going to happen automatically? No. I mean, I think there are also major challenges.
Yes.
And I'm very glad to see that I think both the government and the private sector are aware of the challenges.
Yes.
And it will take, you know, a lot of effort at all levels.
Yes.
I think the international pressures are just going up everywhere, and the worries of how a country like Germany, Cambodia, any country, how can we compete against the rest of the world, are serious and have to be taken very seriously and have implications for the way we organize all of our society in education, in our infrastructure, in the business environment, in the way we structure our government, in having, you know, good governance, having participatory mechanisms to ensure that the all initiatives which can boost our competitiveness, our productivity are being taken into account. All of these are key challenges which will not be easy for any country, also not for Cambodia to live up to.
Yeah.
But I think you are in such a favorable position as compared to many other LDCs, and you have taken a pioneering role when you yourself negotiated access to WTO, which has become a model for LDCs how to, you know, move forward in the integration in the International Division of Labor.
Friedrich, I thank you for giving credit for the accession to WTO, but I must say that Cambodia, perhaps by historical context, perhaps you know, our past, the fact that we've been under 17 years of economic embargo, we know what it is to be in isolation.
Right.
And that's why the accession process went very fast. But I think I have to underline the importance of a clear policy direction here. You know, it's clear that the government, particularly the Prime Minister like concerned, who's driving, he's a driving force. He's a believer, I must say, he's a believer in economic integration. You look, we're a member of WTO, we're a member of ASEAN, we're an active player in the Greater Mekong sub-region. We are, you know, making, Cambodia now is much more confident now in terms of our position, at least in the regional context. And I must say that these are something that we cannot take for granted, because as the post-global financial crisis world moving on, you mentioned competition become fiercer.
Right.
You know, we have to compete. We collaborate with some country, but we have to compete. And this is where I want to focus a bit on the role of the International Trade Center, for
Right.
example.
Yeah.
I understand you're going to China for a World Export Development Forum. It's a huge gathering of almost 100 some country or so. Please.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, you know, the International Trade Center has actually been established in the 60s because it became clear that market access is one thing, but it is not enough to ensure that developing countries can become more successful in international markets. And that's why the international community has established this joint venture between the World Trade Organization and the United Nations to help exporters from developing countries to be more successful. And we are doing this in a number of different manners. One point, for instance, is that we are working together with the trade promotion institutions, with the chambers of commerce and other associations of the business sector to become effective promoters, to adopt the best practice in providing services to their industries, both in the agriculture sector, in the industrial sector, and the service sector. Because it's very clear that it's those countries which have managed to forge a true partnership between the business sector and public sector and the public institutions, that it's these countries who have really been able to harness the potential of small and medium-sized companies to contribute to employment, to contribute to the growth of the country. So we work together with these trade promotion organizations. Then a major area we are assisting our partners throughout the world is in rendering international trade more transparent. We've developed a number of market analysis tools which are freely available on the website. You can have access directly to them, like a trade map or market access map, which allow you to find out where is actual demand for our export products. If I'm a producer of shoes, of pineapples, of whatever it is, I can find what are the market trends, who are the buyers, and so on. And we've just made a recent survey, and we have seen that companies with turnover of up to $40 billion for this amount have been using these tools to identify better marketing strategies. So what we're doing there is just to render international trade more transparent so as to empower companies to improve their marketing strategies and, of course, also governments to devise better strategies. But you were talking also about the process of accession of Cambodia to the World Trade Organization. And here is another area where ITC is involved in helping our partner countries in becoming more effective, for instance, by supporting the business community in understanding of the multilateral trading system, in understanding also the benefits of regional integration, and in making a case, for what is essential for them in the trade policy context. We know that unless the business community is actively involved, trade policy decisions may be ill-advised. And secondly, also, once a new trade agreement has been reached, how can we make best use out of it? How do we cope with many of the more technical norms and restrictions? How do we shape up to be able to comply with the phytosanitary and sanitary conditions? So here we have a service that is helping the business community organizations and also the public sector to come together and to come up with really, promising trade policy approaches. Another area which has proven to be very important is to to make exports really a central part of our overall development strategies, and to help governments and the business sector to come up with credible and feasible export strategies, be it at the national level or be it at the sectoral level. And for instance, we're working with your government and with your private sector on such a strategy for the silk sector, and later on we may be talking more about that.
Yes.
But we think that it is absolutely essential for a country to make sure that international trade is part and parcel of the overall economic policy. No country nowadays can succeed by ignoring trade.
Yes.
So it has to move up on the national policy agenda, and I think that's actually happening in your country.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Well, Friedrich, you know, I understand you coming with a delegation with Mr. Zeshon, who is in charge of Cambodia in terms of country programming, and you mentioned that you're working on the silk with the Cambodian government. Perhaps I could ask Zeshon a bit to say what they're doing in Cambodia in terms of program. But once again, thank you so much.
Thank you very much,
good luck for your, your trip to China.
That's right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, I now have the pleasure to have a chat with a member of Friedrich delegation, Mr. Zeshon Jiang, who is in charge of the Office of Asia Pacific with the International Trade Center. Zeshon, welcome. You has been managing the Cambodian program for many, many years, and in terms of technical assistance, in terms of support, Cambodia in many different programs. Could you say a bit about some of your flagship program in Cambodia?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. In fact, ITC has been working very closely with Cambodia for almost a decade. And we have been focusing in a sector which is having lots of implications on the poor as well as good export potential, and that is the silk sector. One of the key things that we have done in this sector is to support the country by developing export sector strategy. And this had involved many stakeholders concerned in the country with a bottoms-up approach and working closely with both the public and private sector. And this strategy was developed in 2005 to 2006. And now ITC is giving the support to Cambodia for its implementation. And within this context, we have been helping the sector in a number of areas, such as by addressing the needs of the sericulture, and also by offering training to a large number of silk weavers, and also by helping the sector in promoting and marketing the silk products. And we have been working in this sector for about 7 years. And I must say, through a series of technical interventions, we have achieved quite something. Say a total number of 2,000 silk producers have been benefiting from the ITC technical support, and altogether about 700 silk weavers have been trained through ITC technical assistance program, and we also have trained about 60 silk designers.
Wow.
So the way we do is by working very closely with the local partners who are, because we believe in developing institutional capacity, realizing ITC cannot reach to all the silk producers. So by strengthening some local organizations such as Cambodia Crafts Corporation and KSV, through them, to reach out to a large number of silk weavers.
And I can see you bringing some good sample there.
Indeed, this is something that I bought, from a shop owned by Cambodia Crafts Corporation. It's something actually was designed through the technical assistance of the ITC project, with this
Takel.
Takel.
Yes.
I think it's named after the place of
Yes,
the province, right? And this shows clearly, it's a very elegant design of a silk scarf, which I personally, when I saw this, I really liked it.
Yes.
And this also indicates, the origin and the handwork of the scarf that the silk weavers have put in, and also acknowledging the support by ITC. Yeah. So to ITC, I think really is something that we are quite proud of, that we are helping the silk sector to develop in this country.
Yeah, I must say that silk is a traditional product Cambodia dating back 1,000 years ago. Even in those days in the Angkor Wat, you see all these Apsara, which are the celestial dancer, all wearing beautiful silk. And I'm glad to see this tradition being revitalized, not only from the cultural perspective, but bringing the dimension of a culture into an economic perspective. Economic perspective in the sense that we're helping our local community to be self-sufficient, to earn money, to develop increase their livelihood, but more in the context that how a cultural asset can take a country to the international scene. I've been to Milan, I've been to Paris, I've been to New York, I've been to Japan, and I do see in many shops Cambodian silk. And this is something that, as Friedrich has mentioned, that, trade matter and international trade further matter, in the sense that how can you possibly think that one person weaving at the village level can find her product in the shelf of a boutique shop in Tokyo or in Milan or in New York or Paris for that matter. And this is something that I feel bring the pride of the country. And I really think that the work that ITC is doing, for me, I have the honor to be associated with the ITC for 3.5 years. And I must say that this is something that I bring back with a lot of pride and the technical knowledge I have acquired for that. And I really look forward to see ITC continue support for Cambodia in sectoral issue like that. For your information, the Prime Minister has launched about last month, it's our rice export policy. So we have clear export policy. And I must say, a lot of the contribution have come from the value chain, many of the methodology, the market access map that ITC, that I myself have learned from my days in Geneva. So concretely, I believe that trade matter, and I am confident that this path will continue. Cambodia is a firm believer of economic integration, and we will continue to thrive, while taking advantage of a strong, dynamic trading community as Southeast Asia in the wider context of China as a whole. So in this context, I am sorry I have to bring the show to a close, but let me say thank you, Friedrich. Thank you, Zeshon, for taking the time to come to speak in our show. And I look forward to see you next time when you're in the country. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately we're coming to the end of our program. And I like to conclude to say that trade matter, international trade matter more than anything for Cambodia. So I look forward to see you again next week for another thematic session relating to Cambodia economic development. Good night.